Hey you guys, Matt Allen, Tim Little, welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Today we've got another video in our holiday buyer's guide series. Today we're talking everything A-rigs.
Alabama rigs. It's one of my favorite ways to catch them. You guys know that I throw it a ton. Ever since its inception, it's come out. I mean, we've caught so many double digits on it. I know you've had a ton of clients. Some of my biggest fish caught with buddies or buddies caught on my boat have been on A-rigs. They have come a long way. So talking about A-rigs, they can be as crazy as straight fluorocarbon rigs, you know, 200-pound fluorocarbon, 150-pound fluorocarbon, expensive as you want, or all the way down to
as simple as you want.
13 bucks, right? But they still catch fish, catch big ones. Where do we start?
Well, why don't you just start with those, and then we'll jump into I'll talk about our rigs. You talk about those, I'll talk about our rigs. We'll talk about why,
okay.
Right? What's the deal behind a rig, and then we'll go into like the components that we use to build them out properly.
Yeah, when these things first came out, a lot of people just assumed that it was just a cast, chuck and wind, and you'd catch giants. But what
Which for a minute was kind of
true. But then the fish learned, and that's why we've developed the ones we've developed. And played around with different baits and different head size, all sorts of stuff. But as far as these guys right here, so on the high end of the spectrum, this is the stealth lures. Okay, it's fluorocarbon, comes with 4 blades, and it's a 5-wire or 5 fluorocarbon armed.
5 armed
yeah,
rig.
5 armed rig.
Completely clear.
So if you're a guy, completely clear, exactly right. So if you're a guy that's fishing pressured waters or ultra clear water, and you feel like having, you know, some wire or some stuff in the way, you guys can check these guys out. I think they're like $49.99, something right. Like that.
Although everything, we time these videos in this buyer's guide series intentionally. All of the A-rigs are on sale right now. Now, if you're watching this 2 or 3 weeks late, they won't be. But if you're watching it close to when this comes out, if you're watching it morning of like you should be, all of these are on sale right now. And that's why we timed this the way we did. So they're not $49.99 right now. You'll save some money.
Right. So yeah, you got with higher end swivels. You got a built-in swivel into the head to eliminate line twists. And on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, still a good rig, just no swivel on the front, lighter terminal, but still catches giants. This is the Yum Flash Mob Junior. Caught a lot of big fish on this one early on.
Yep.
But
no frills, nothing fancy.
Yep.
But man, we've caught big ones on it.
Silver wires, nothing fancy, but they still eat it. So that guy right there, I think it's like 13 or 14 bucks. So complete opposite ends of the spectrum. Depends on how much you want to spend and how deep down the rabbit hole you want to dive.
Right. Now, we have 3 more rigs sitting here, and these are rigs that Tim and I have designed with Hog Farmer. Price-wise, they land right in between those two. So A-rigs, we all know that they work, right? Bass hammer on schools of bait fish. But a lot of people don't enjoy throwing A-rigs because it's so cumbersome. They're heavy. You gotta lob them out there. It'll beat you up.
Lots of drag in the water.
So we started with this rig right here. And punchline, rigs are not hard to throw anymore. That's where we're headed. You can do it with a spinning rod, a bait finesse rod. That's where we're headed. But we built the flex rig first. This is the full-size rig. 6-wire rig. So there's all sorts of different theories on A-rigs. How many hooks you should have, depending on the state you're in. How many swim baits are the right number of swim baits, right number of blades. We have found that a 6-wire rig is the perfect balance. So 3 hooked baits on the bottom. They're on longer arms. They're larger. And then 3 smaller dummy baits on top. That is the perfect arrangement to get bit most often. Because we used to throw 5 wires and 7 wires. And sometimes one was better than the other. And we started building 6s, and sure enough, that was the ticket. So this is the Hog Farmer TacticalBassin Flex rig. Comes in bladed and non-bladed. After that, things sort of got tougher nationally, right? We've been talking about that a lot. Everybody knows it. Fishing as a whole has toughened up. And we came out with the Mini Flex. It's just a response to what the fish were doing. Now, we still blast them on the flex rig. I cut this off of a rod for this. I cut all 3 of these off rods for this video, actually. These are rigs I'm actually throwing day in and day out. You know, Tim showed up with a whole tub of them. We throw a ton of rigs. The Mini is just that much smaller. Again, 6-wire rig, 3 with hooks, 3 without. I don't care if you're in a state that allows 5 hooks. If you set them up properly with 3, you will still hook 100% of your bites. It's amazing how you can manipulate the way that the fish eat this school of bait fish. They will not eat the smaller baits that are higher and forward. They eat the larger baits that are lower and in the back every single time. Now, with that said, A-rigs can still be cumbersome, and that's where the micro came in. This is the Hog Farmer Tactical Micro. This little guy, there's your difference right there. Look at the difference in these things. This is hardly bigger and weighs no more than a full-size spinnerbait. You can now take an A-rig. I have literally, to test what I was saying, spent entire days on the Tennessee River throwing this on a spinning rod. You can do it comfortably. It's no longer difficult. You can sling that A-rig, shoot it up under trees, around docks, and just cast it all day long. So if you're tired of getting beat up by A-rigs, but you understand their effectiveness, this solves that. Now, we went to a 5-wire for the micro, and the reason why is very simple. 6-wire is just too much going on in that smaller package. The amount of time that we paned over, you'll notice that your dummy wires are one length, bottom wires are another, main wire is another. All the lengths are different. We paned over 1/4-inch adjustments in this thing to get the most compact ball of baits possible. The first 5-pounder I caught on this ate it whole, all 3 hooks in the mouth. As compact as possible, while still having enough room between the baits, they're not snagging and creating problems. All of these have swiveling hook hangers. All of them are what we call flex rigs, meaning they're made out of a very soft but durable wire, so that when you work the rigs and you pump, because we don't just steady retrieve, when you work these rigs, that bait ball will close and open, and that is when the vast majority of your strikes come. So we found the perfect balance that we could between movement in a rig and durability to land the most fish that we could without breaking the things and having them last for an extended period of time.
Yeah, I'm glad you talked about that, because that's kind of, I mean, you and I don't really care to be lure designers or want to be bait maker, anything like that, but we saw the need for, one, a rig that had lighter wires, right?
Yep.
When these things first hit the market,
That wasn't a thing.
The wire was so thick, there was no movement in the bait ball whatsoever. And when you're trying to mimic a school of bait fish, you want that flow, you want that compressing and expanding, that real natural swimming action. And we actually had a buddy start making our own with super light wire, and that's kind of where that's where we tested how light of a wire we could go with still catching 10-pounders.
Yep.
And then we kind of found, you know, the middle point where we needed to be for longevity and durability. And again,
he didn't want to build them, which is how we ended up here.
Well, yeah. So, and then playing around with, you know, the 6 wires versus the 5 wires versus 7 or 8, and the different sizes. Everything that we've put into these was from experience. You know, too short of wires, not enough flexibility. Too long of wires, not enough durability. There's a, you know, or snagging right on your cast. So there's a lot that goes into it. Yes, it can be as simple as going and buying one of these, opening those snaps and putting your 5 swim baits on there. But if you want to, there's a lot more to learn and a lot more.
You could take it to a whole different level.
Whole nother level.
And it matters.
And it especially on, I mean, we're here on the Tennessee River, one of the, I mean, highest pressured fisheries in the country, and it matters. You know, I've been boat to boat fishing A-rigs against another guy throwing A-rigs, and he's like, man, what are you doing? And I'll stimp it off, I'll give him one, because it makes a difference. It does matter, especially when these fish have seen it. So if you want to get into it, this guy right here will catch you big ones. But once you start going down that rabbit hole, understand that there was a lot of time in developing exactly these baits right here. The flex rig, the mini, and the micro. for exactly that, the different days out on the water. There's some days you can blast them on the micro and they won't touch a mini, or days they want the full size but they don't want the micro. So we developed that as a system.
Yep.
To better help us and you guys out on the water.
Now, one other thing, if I can add, I've got some of them sitting here in packages. You'll notice split rings banging around in the bottom here, okay? We wanted you to be able to get a rig the exact way that we throw it. So these come with snaps on them. And the reason they come with snaps is because not everyone owns a pair of split ring pliers. Not everyone cares. Not everyone watches Tactical and understands what we're doing. So some people just want to clip baits on and go. So they come out of the package that way. The first thing we do when we get them is take those 3 hooked baits and cut the snaps off. And we've included the owner hyper wire split rings in the bag. The right size depending on the rig. And you can take those hyper wires. The only thing you need is a pair of split ring pliers. You put those on. You put your swim bait heads on. We'll get to those in a minute. Put your heads on with the split ring pliers. And now we've eliminated the only potential failure point in every rig. Snaps are what opens or breaks on every rig on the market. When you don't have those, when you connect with split rings, you are that much stronger. And when you hook a giant, you have that much more confidence. So we've got them straight out of the pack fishable, but including the components to make them the exact way that we fish our own.
Yeah, then also in this epoxy head, we have a swivel in there. So that also eliminates the line twist. Again, just wanted them built the exact way that you and I fish.
Built right. I mean, that's why we went to Hog Farmer, right? Hog Farmer already built, in my opinion, our opinion, the best A-rigs on the market. We went to Hog Farmer. They're handmade in Tennessee. They're not coming off of a boat somewhere. We went to those guys. They're good people, friends, family, and showed them what we wanted to do. They were willing to do it. Here we are. Now, let's jump into components, because each one of these rigs, we do them differently. So the Flex rig is an example, full-size swim baits. 4.8 Kitech, a Mayer, full-size Mayer. Full size is the key to that rig. 4.8 is the deal. Now, when you go to the Mini, you start seeing things downsizing, right? On the Mini, it's going to be the swammer is the main thing that we're throwing there. X-Zone swammer. The 4-inch swammer, or a combination of 4-inch and 3.25-inch, is the deal. And then on the little guys, the armor shad. That Demiki armor shad, and that's a very specific choice. There's a lot of small swim baits that'll work, right? You can throw a Megabass Spark Shad, 2.8 Kitech, 2.75 Swammer. I mean, I could just run down a list of great baits you could put on there. The armor shad is a very durable bait, but it also is a tough bait. So when you reel it, it has a very aggressive vibration. It's not just tail kick, it's vibration in the swim bait itself. When you go to a miniature rig like this, a downsized rig, when you go to that, your drawing power gets smaller. Fish will come farther to eat this than they will come to eat this. That's just the way bass operate. By going to a swim bait that has a vibration, it just increases the drawing power to that rig. Sometimes we don't take the time to stop and explain why this bait, that bait, right? We just link in the video description this bait. We don't take the time to explain why, but there's always reasoning behind specific bait choices. And then it's specific heads too. You want to talk heads?
Yeah, I mean, where do we start? We're going a full-size rig. It's typically the Matt Allen head. Bigger hook, more stout of a hook. When we're fishing around big fish, we don't want to bend out hooks, right? We don't want that to be the weak point of our rig. So we're going the Matt Allen swim bait head, stouter hook, not gonna break, you're not gonna bend out. Couple tips on a rig like this. If you're, well, again, I don't know how much of a rabbit hole we want to go down.
You can go a little ways, it's fine.
But if you're having issues with, say, a flex rig and you're snagging on the cast, you can always make your heaviest head the one that's farther back, and in the middle, make these two on the outside lighter, so when you rear back and cast, they don't flex, they don't weigh as much and snag each other. There's a little tip for you. when you pull this thing out of the package and you go to bend your wires, you can see right here, we have 3 coming up and then 3 kind of coming down at an angle. But you don't want to bend these wires right out of the epoxy head. You want to come back 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch and then make your bend. That rig will last a lot longer. But getting back to heads, so typically Matt Allen heads, Dirty Jigs, the Matt Allen heads, if you need to go with
screw locks,
yeah, you can go with these guys right here. It has the screw lock into the head, so a lot of times we're super gluing heads or baits onto the heads, but this product has helped increase the durability of your favorite swim bait.
Yeah, like that's what's in this one.
You literally thread your
look
swim
how
bait.
destroyed the bait is, and it's still hanging on there, right?
You thread that bait onto the head. You don't need super glue. It just holds those swim baits a lot better to that package. And in a great day out on the water in the A-rig, you can catch 30, 50. I mean, we've caught tons of fish in a day, and it just helps with durability on the swim baits. As far as the mini rig, where's that at? Right here.
Still Matt Allen.
Still going with Matt Allen's again. Stouter hook, because here's the deal. Even though you're throwing a mini rig, I mean, I've caught 20-pound striper on this guy.
Right.
You don't know
what's going
to eat it, and it could be a 50-pound drum, or I mean, it could be whatever. So you want to, again, you want to have stout hooks. So that's a little 1/8 ounce. What are those? Those are 3/16.
3/16 on the outside on that one.
So Matt Allen heads on that. Again, we're throwing like a 3.5 to 4 inch swim bait, main bait. And then on the micro, again, like Matt talked about, we're going with the Mickey's, but this is a hook that Matt found. It's the Z-Man, the Trout Eye Finesse. Now, you can get away with throwing like the Guppies or the Megabass Okashira head, but to my point about the big striper eating this, you don't know when you're gonna have a 5-pounder eat the entire rig,
right.
And you don't wanna be fighting them on a light wire hook. So that Trout Eyes Finesse, even though it's a smaller profile, it still has a fairly stout hook that you're not necessarily going to bend out as easily as you would with some of the other, some of our other favorite single swim bait options. When we're fishing those, we're using lighter line, we're using lighter rods, and typically when we're fishing this, a little bit heavier line, heavier rods, and you don't want to bend out those fish on a guppy head or an Okashira head per se. So
yeah, when we started out, we were with the micro, we were throwing all guppy heads on it, and it worked flawlessly. But you'd hook a big one, and you'd have to like really baby them on a guppy head on a bait caster. So I knew we needed to find a solution, and just started digging and digging and digging. And the Okashira did great. The Okashira is an excellent option. And then that trout, when I found that Trout Eyes Finesse, I'm like, that's the one. That was designed so trout were like, why is that strong? It's because that's a saltwater hook, right? That's inshore fishing saltwater for their trout, not little rainbow trout. That's all we're talking about. So that Trout Eyes Finesse is a very small hook that's very stout. It's small enough that it fits perfectly on the micro. It's stout enough that I can lean on them and not bend them out. It's that perfect balance. I was really happy when we found that head and got that thing dialed in. That really finished off that rig.
And both of these, I mean, especially this one, it's so easy to throw. Going back to the old days of those A-rigs that came out, I mean, you needed a broomstick to throw them.
Yep.
Your shoulder, your elbow hurt all day. Now it's just, I mean, you just take your favorite jig rod and just chuck and wind. Like, it doesn't have to be a swim bait rod per se, and even bait finesse on these little guys. It's so much fun, and there's so much to learn about fish behavior and how they react to that school of bait fish reacting. There's a lot to learn about Alabama rigs.
All right, so from there, we've got storage and rods, and we'll just jam through the storage. The only other thing you need to know is how to store rigs, because they can be a pain, right? And we found 3 solutions that really work. When they're on your rod, Tim and I use a different method. He uses that. It's a rig wrangler. So he slides that over that rig on the rod, and it stores them really, really well.
Yeah, when it's tied on, you just basically run your line through that gap right there. You slide this up over your rig, pull it up, pull your line up tight, and it sucks everything into this little guy right here. and then boom, that's how it is in your rod locker. You hook your hook onto your keeper on your rod, and it just keeps all those wires compressed and out of the way.
Yep. This is how I do it. Same exact concept. When they're on the deck of my boat, this is how you'll see it. I take my standard rig, like this one. There's a micro right there, a mini rather, not a micro. That's the mini. I take a rod sleeve and just slide it down and just compress those together. So this is the rod glove, just a standard sleeve, slid down over, it compresses my wires, and I can leave that laying on deck and it's not tangling with everything around it. And then for actual storage
in your backpack, if you're shore fishing or you're jumping in a buddy's boat, or in your rod locker, this is a box that Tackle Warehouse came out with. It's a pretty neat little deal. It's got room for 4 tubes, and in these tubes you can pop the top off, but you can take and put your fully rigged rigs in the sleeve. So just like the Rig Wrangler, it's just in these little tubes. And I actually have 2 in my boat. I have one that is for non-bladed, and then I've written bladed on one. So I have a bladed pack and a non-bladed, because it does take some time to rig these properly.
Yeah, you don't want to do it on the water.
If you go and you break that off, and now you need to go and sit down and rig another rig properly, it's going to take you 10 to 15 minutes at least. It's nice to be able to have a few already pre-rigged, ready to go. Just open this thing up, slide it out, tie it on. But yeah, storing A-rigs was a headache for a long, long time.
It was. All right, let's talk rods, and then we'll wrap this thing up for you guys. Throwing traditional rigs, right? A full-size rig, you know, like throwing a stealth lures, throwing that guy, throwing your standard rigs. The main rod that we do that on is a Shimano X-Pride 7.7 heavy. That rod it's long, so you can really load up to fire those bigger, heavier rigs, like that one with big heads on it. That one I was fishing 30 to 40 foot deep. That's why that's set up like that, with big stout hooks, big heavy heads. That allows you to sling those big rigs. I've got a bantam on here, and then it's 65 pound braid to 20 pound leader is typically what I'm throwing. Now, the beauty of what we've been able to do with rigs and really dialing it in is you don't always need to do that. The standard rig, the mini, all your mid-sized rigs, Tim already said it, your jig rod. Specifically, the rod that we use is a Zodius 7.5 medium heavy. The reason why that one is that the Zodius has a longer handle than the average 7.3 to 7.6 rod. And that really allows you to load up and send those casts. And it's without beating yourself up, right? It's a much easier load up, much easier cast. You can just lob them. And again, 50 to 65 pound braid, 20 pound leader is about perfect. Now, for the little guys, now this is what we're talking about. Whether you have old injuries, whether you just don't like throwing rigs, you can throw this on almost anything. I grabbed my jerkbait rod. I mean, a 610 medium. It's perfect. 70 size reel, light braid, light leader. You can literally throw this on a bait finesse rod. You could throw it on a spinning rod. You could throw it on a jerkbait rod, topwater rod. Those are all really good options for throwing that guy. Again, we'll link all of these in the video description, along with the baits, favorite colors in the baits, heads, sizes of heads, all those things. We'll link all that for you.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. You know, from the snaps to the swivels to the dummy baits to the hooked baits.
Yep.
So we'll do our best. We'll link everything down below, favorite colors, sizes, all that good stuff, because there is a lot to it. But guys, there it is. Everything Alabama rigs. You know, we love them. The fish love them, and you can have some of your best days out on the water with an A rig. So hopefully this helps with kind of narrowing the buyers. You know, when you
making
go,
wise decisions.
Yeah, when you go online,
rigs aren't cheap.
You know, when you go online or you go to your favorite tackle shop, there's so many different styles and types and whatever. So just wanted to kind of lay that out there and help you guys with A rigs. So
Let's
What else
wrap
we-
it up.
yeah, what else
I
we
don't
got?
remember what we're doing tomorrow, but we are going 7 days a week. So we will see you guys bright and early tomorrow morning with another buyer's guide. We're looking forward to it. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.